Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch of Crime Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get straight to the docket. First, Lori Vallow's attorney is at it again. Second, 6 officers under official investigation as it relates to the death of Breonna Taylor. A case where competency involved has finally been resolved 6 years later. Video of the tragic shooting case in Utah has been released. Another virtual courtroom incident. Luke and Bo Duke would be proud of this guy. And finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. Thanks for watching Crime Talk. My name is Scott Reisch. First, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you haven't done so already, we'd ask that you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, hit that little bell so that you receive notifications of when we put out new content or go live like we will do this evening, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Now, yesterday was a short video because, well, we were off doing lawyer stuff all day long, and it was a long day. Didn't get back here till the office till about 9:30 last night. But today we are charged up and ready to go, and we will be here tonight at 6 p.m. live. So let's get to the docket. First on the docket, Lori Vallow's attorney is at it again. That's right, big sigh. Every time this guy files something, it simply never ceases to amaze me. What is he doing? It makes no sense whatsoever. So Mr. Means, on behalf of Lori Vallow, has filed a motion to change the venue of the case. Now, this is kind of a little more formal pleading than what he had filed before, but not really. And he doesn't expand on any other reasons, but once again, he wants the court to set a briefing schedule for arguments, etc. Now, the rules of Idaho criminal procedure are rather clear. He has 28 days in which to file the motions, and he needs to do that. Well, then he files a motion for the motion for transfer, and he does the same thing. He didn't really change the caption. He says, well, we want to transfer this, and we want this to be done for the convenience of the parties. And he also says that the cases will ultimately be joined, so he's concluding that they will be. You have to remember, though, that Chad Daybell's attorney, Mr. Pryor, has filed his objection to the prejudicial joinder, or the motion for joinder, as filed by the district attorney in the case. So Mr. Means files this motion saying, hey, the motion for transfer and for joinder is basically based upon the series of facts, which are all the same, the charges in this particular case, and the exact facts, series of facts alleged in the case are the same as it relates to Mr. Chad Daybell. I don't get this guy. I really don't get this guy, what he is doing, all right? One of the things, obviously, we wanted to be able to do when we started this program was to be able to explain to the world what goes on in criminal cases and why they're doing it. Pryor, the attorney for Chad Daybell, and whether you like him or not, he is doing everything right thus far, okay? No complaints about the representation that he's receiving at all. Lori Vallow's attorney, questionable at best. You know, it appears as though Mr. Means does not engage in the practice of criminal defense work on a regular basis, and I think that comes out. Now, here's all he had to do. He should have objected to the joinder. Even if he wanted the joinder, he should have objected. It's called creating appellate issues. And this guy just doesn't get it. It's not a good tactical decision. Even if tactically you think the cases will ultimately be joined and transferred to another jurisdiction, you oftentimes have to object to these things to preserve the record, because if you lose, you want to create as many appellate issues as possible. It's used in plea negotiation purposes. DA is going to say, hey, I can make this case go away, all the potential appellate issues. This guy, Mr. Means, is just not very good. Now, who knows? He may come around and surprise me, but at this point, literally everything he has done to this point has been wrong. We can talk about that more this evening when we go live. Next on the docket, 6 Louisville Metro police officers are under an internal investigation into their actions related to the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor. Now, this comes officially from a police spokesperson and stated that the probe into Detective Miles Cosgrove, Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly, who fired their weapons into Taylor's apartment on March 13th, Detective Joshua Janis, who sought the search warrant for her apartment, and Detective Tony James, Detective Michael Campbell, and Detective Michael Noble are all under formal investigation. Officers violated any police policies during the incident. The spokesman for the police department said that disciplinary action could include a reprimand and extend all the way up to termination. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this case, Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, were sleeping inside their Louisville apartment when 3 plainclothes officers, Mattingly, Cosgrove, and Detective Brett Haskins, attempted to execute a no-knock search warrant. The officers were investigating a suspected drug operation linked to Taylor's ex-boyfriend. Walker said he received no response from the other side of the door when he called out after the officers rammed the door. Walker took his lawfully permitted firearm and shot at the door, and the officers returned fire, striking Taylor 8 times and ultimately killing her in her sleep. Now, no drugs or money were found on the premises whatsoever. And obviously, most people have heard that Taylor's death has sparked a nationwide protest against police violence targeting minorities and a strong call for the officers to be charged. Now, although the officer was placed on administrative duty following the incidents and Haskins was fired for an unrelated matter, currently the investigation is being handled by the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron. Cameron has not given a timetable for when he thinks he'll be able to reveal his findings, but that they are getting close and they are actually preparing it. This is where it gets really interesting, is that the Louisville Metro Police Chief, Robert Schroeder, has issued a state of emergency for his department in anticipation of an update on the state investigation. So what that means is, obviously, police are anticipating violence, possible protests, and riots as it relates to any kind of decision or the lack of update on the decision. So that means that all the police have had their regularly scheduled vacations and time off suspended during this state of emergency. And then finally, back on September 15th, the city of Louisville reached a $12 million settlement with Breonna Taylor's family, who had filed a wrongful death lawsuit. The settlement included a commitment by the city to institute police reforms. Now, they always do that when they resolve these cases because that's really the goal, and it's not about the money. But we all know, and if you ever want to see my true philosophy in life, simply go find the video. We can maybe put a link up here for you, which is the 12 undeniable truths. And ladies and gentlemen, it's always about the money. I can think of 12 million reasons that this was about. Now, obviously, the death of Miss Taylor, however sad, she's never coming back, and the only way that she can be compensated or her family can be compensated is financially, and the city and her family believe that $12 million was enough for that to be done. There's no control over the civil settlement as what can be done on the criminal matter. $12 million will certainly help make things be a little more comfortable for sure. All right, next on the docket, a case involving competency issues has finally been resolved. That's right, 6 years later. So 6 years after the gruesome death of Tammy Jo Blanton, Joseph Oberhansley has been found guilty of her murder as well as consuming parts of her. That's right. You heard that correctly. The verdict was announced last Friday after 6 days of testimony in court. He was found guilty of murder, burglary, and not guilty of sexual assault and could spend the rest of his life in prison. Now, Oberhansley was found at Miss Blanton's home on the early morning hours of September 11th, 2014, with her dismembered body in the bathtub inside the house and a skillet, a bloody pair of tongs, and a plate with what appeared to be the skull and bones nearby. Mr. Oberhansley admitted in an interview with the police that he was responsible for the death of Miss Blanton, but later walked that story back and said he found two men in the home that night who would actually be the ones who are responsible for her death. Oberhansley maintained that defense during testimony Thursday afternoon when he answered questions from both his attorney as well as the prosecutor. Needless to say, the jury found Mr. Oberhansley guilty. But I think what is interesting, because it somewhat relates to what we are already dealing with as it relates to the Letitia Stalk matter. All may recall Letitia Stalk has been charged with the death of Gannon Stalk down in Colorado Springs, and competency is at issue. And the Oberhansley case is a fine example of what happens when competency is at issue, and that is really the case will drag on for years. Most of the time in the Oberhansley case was restoring Mr. Oberhansley to competency, not once, but twice. And as we said, it took 6 years to get the case ultimately to a verdict. Hopefully the Letitia Stalk case will get moving once the second competency evaluation is complete, and that case can move forward as well. Let's hope it doesn't take 6 years. All right, before we get to the rest of the docket, let's take a quick recess. Please go to CrimeTalkSearch.com. Please sign up for a background subscription service. You will be happy that you did. Let's face it, you want to know with whom you are dealing with in life. If you've met somebody, perhaps online, maybe even a blind date, you think you know somebody, you're not sure. Well, guess what? When you have a background subscription service, you can anonymously search these people, as many people as you want, and you're going to get a report that is done while you wait, and literally millions of public records are searched, and you're going to get a report that's going to have information regarding any phone numbers, emails, and social media that are associated with the person that you are searching. You'll get background information related to convictions, misdemeanors, felony, sex offender registration. You'll also get information regarding property records, bankruptcies, civil judgments, and marital records. How important is that these days? Check out with whom you are dealing with. Please go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up. You'll be happy you did. Back to the docket. We discussed this case a couple of weeks ago, where a 13-year-old Utah boy with autism was shot by police after his mother called and asked for help getting him hospital mental health treatment, and officers agreed to talk with him. The video has actually been released, and it shows the officers chasing him down an alley after they arrive at his home, then yelling at him to get on the ground. The boy collapses after a series of shots ring out and is actually moaning. It says, "I don't feel good. I don't feel good." He survived but suffered broken bones and pierced organs. The child's mother had warned the police that her son said earlier that day, this is back on September 4th when all this went down, that he had a gun and had threatened to shoot her male coworker and break windows in the house. She told the officers, though, that she thought it was a BB gun or a pellet gun. There were no other indications that the young man was in fact armed, and his mother was simply trying to get help for him to be hospitalized because of mental health issues. The mother also claims that although the boy did have access to a real gun, that he was simply triggered by seeing the police. According to the mother, when her son sees somebody with a badge, he automatically thinks they're going to kill him or that he has to defend himself in some way. We're not going to put the video up on this show, but we're going to put a link to it on its own video so that you can watch it. When you do watch it, it can be somewhat graphic, although it is hard to see given the chase through the alley. But it's clear that the police tell the young man to stop, but there's no indication that he looks or appears to be armed in any way whatsoever. You watched the video. Let me know, was it unlawful what the officers did, or was it lawful but awful? Let me know in the comments below. Well, virtual classrooms just keep surprising us every day. And we had a case the other day where literally somebody was assaulted while the children were doing their Zoom class. Well, a Wisconsin man is charged with allegedly shooting and killing his own sister. And investigators say a school official says Children at the virtual classroom heard it because one of the students was living at the residence where this was all taking place. A person who lived at the home told the investigators that the defendant had been talking crazy on the morning of September 11th when she awoke to the sound of 5 gunshots. Now, the accused in this case, and we'll give him the presumption of innocence, is a gentleman by the name of Mario Stokes. The victim is allegedly his sister. According to the police, Mr. Stokes went to the District 4 police station in the city and told the acting desk sergeant that his sister no longer existed, and he did it, and that he used a .380 caliber pistol. Mr. Stokes told investigators he had argued with Blackman, his sister, the day before, and he shot her in the morning while she was still upset. Apparently, the argument was that Miss Blackman wanted her brother to leave the house. When the police arrived, they found Miss Blackman seated against a kitchen stove, and she had suffered a gunshot wound to her temple and cheek. Never know what you're going to learn in class today, kids. Got to keep that virtual classroom monitored at all times. All right. A driver that would make Bo and Luke Duke happy. That's right. It's a reference to the Dukes of Hazzard. Remember that? They used to drive around in the car, escaping the police, and they were always going over jumps and bridges. That's right. Well, Michigan authorities say that there was a man arrested for driving his Dodge sedan over a rising drawbridge. Miguel Gomez was speeding when he struck and drove through the Fort Street Bridge security grate and went airborne before landing on the other side of the bridge, according to the Wayne County prosecutors who are handling this case. Mr. Gomez damaged the security gate as well as his car's tire and windshield. He was charged with malicious destruction of property and reckless driving. Imagine that. If there's ever been a definition of what reckless driving may be, this may be the case. Now, the drawbridge operator, a gentleman by the name of Andrew Locke, witnessed the whole stunt, and he said it reminded him something out of the Blues Brothers movie. In that movie, a car jumps the 95th Street Bridge in Chicago. Mr. Locke told the authorities that he said, quote, "I looked and I said, no, he ain't. I hit the emergency spot and the bridge jammed. Over he went, blew out all 4 of his tires, then he crashed into the other side of the gate." Now, I have been trying to find videotape surveillance footage of the jump, and we've been unable to do so. Here's a little bridge jumping for you that can put it all in perspective. She caught the you right. And finally today, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Please look at these 2 geniuses. That's right. 46-year-old Walter Appelier and 42-year-old Lee Waller loaded a light pole from the Wonderwoods Bridge onto their Kia Sorento the other day about 9:30 a.m. The picture here shows them seated on the ground with handcuffs while the pole, valued at $2,500, sits atop of their SUV. Now, when questioned as to why they had this pole on their car, Mr. Appelier told the officers he was moving the pole because it was laying on the ground close to the driver's lane. When asked why he didn't simply just push it away from the lane or call authorities, he said he did not answer, and ultimately both men were taken into custody. Now, according to police records, Mr. Appelier has completed some 73 pawn transactions, 72 of which were scrap metal related transactions. So these guys were basically scrappers and found this pole and figured, hey, let's go see if we can make a few bucks on it. You just can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the question is, would the police take the pole and place it into custody? No, they actually released it back to the city so that they could fix their pole. But at least they took some common sense and put a flag on the end of the pole so, it didn't hit any other cars, or the cars didn't run into it. So they've got that going for them. But gentlemen, you are a dumb criminal contestant of the day. because you thought you could drive down the street with a pole like this and nobody would notice, congratulations. You may be our dumb criminal contestant of the week. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to have a prize that the dumb criminal contestants will get, that's right, a Crime Talk mug, but you don't want to become a dumb criminal contestant, which I highly encourage, you can simply go to the link below, go down to Teespring, bam, you'll see all our brand new stuff that's up. It's really cool. It looks good. We've got a bunch on the way as well, and maybe we'll be able to give some of that stuff away. So go to the link below. All right, that's all we've got for you today. Please join us tonight when we go live at 6 p.m. And then immediately after that, we'll be doing our Patreon show as well. And that one you can actually call in and talk with me. We'll talk about anything you want, but we'll do that right after our live. So make sure you go and sign up for Patreon as well. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.